Welcome to episode 8 of Scriptural Focus. We're back to tackle another one of your questions from the original thread, asking for feedback, asking for responses. As always, any Bible questions you have, leave them under this video. We'll be checking them, adding them to our list of future potential Scriptural Focus videos. This time we're going to look at one from Dante. Great question, one that I really enjoy talking about. And so we're going to look at his question and then make some considerations based on it. I've noticed that more and more people aren't dressing up for worship anymore. I think especially men, but women as well. Aren't we supposed to give God our best and look our best for Him? How is dressing exactly the same as you would for the rest of the week, except maybe tucking a shirt in, acceptable when you were coming to worship God? That is a really good question, and one that is a pressing one in our time, because you do see this, and it's not just with worship, but with across the board. Casualness is growing. The suit and tie, you look at things from, 70, 80 years ago where it was at a baseball game and everybody was there in a suit. Very strange. Now you look at, you go on an airplane ride, you go to the airport, half the people there are in pajamas. It is a very casual society. And I think that speaks a lot about society, but that's a rabbit hole I'm not going to go down as well as we try and stay on worship. But I think just to say that all of that has come into worship where we think, dressing up for anything is really not that important. He used a phrase there about giving God our best. And that's usually the case that people make when discussing dressing up for worship is we want to give God our best. And other people say, well, our dress has nothing to do with our best. What about other cultures? We all know missionaries that go to places like Africa or South America where maybe there's one change of clothes, but the realization that we have to come to is we're not in that situation. We do have different pairs of clothes. You might dress up for a wedding or a funeral, and so we have a concept of what your best is, and we used to have this term, your Sunday best, the clothes that you would save, the clothes that you didn't go out and play in, you didn't go out to dinner in, you saved them for Sunday morning, and we've lost that. But the question is, does it matter? I, for one, am an advocate for returning towards a higher standard of dress for church, for worship, I should say, for the Sunday assembly, for a number of reasons. I'm going to start in Exodus 19, as God has brought the people out of Egypt, gathered them at Sinai. In 19:10, he says, "The Lord also said to Moses, Go to the people and consecrate them today and tomorrow, and let them wash their garments, and let them be ready for the third day, for on the third day the Lord will come down on Mount Sinai in the sight of all the people. You shall set bounds for the people all around, saying, Beware that you do not go up on the mountain or touch the border of it. Whoever touches the mountain shall surely be put to death. No hand shall touch him, but he shall surely be stoned or shot through. Whether beast or man, he shall not live. When the ram's horn sounds a long blast, they shall come up to the mountain." So Moses went down from the mountain to the people and consecrated the people, and they washed their garments. As God gathered the people and got ready to draw near to them, he says, before we draw near and you draw near to me and come to the mountain and I come to you, you got to get clean. Go home and wash your garments. Go home and get yourself ceremonially clean, because I'm going to come to you, and it's not going to go well for you if you don't. The holiness of God, the otherness of God was very much on display there of, you better bring your best. Even these are wilderness wandering people. And so when we have that thing of, well, what does best really mean? Well, they knew what it meant. They knew it meant getting clean. They knew it meant washing their clothes, preparing themselves for this moment. And we kind of have this thought of things have changed drastically, that was the Old Testament. In fact, in Hebrews, it talks about we don't come to this Mount Sinai that we have to be afraid of and can't touch, but because of Jesus, we can come right to the throne room of God, but he's still a holy God. We can come to him because Jesus is making us holy like him. And so that outer, cleanliness and some of those things are not as on the forefront, but holiness still matters. Reverence still matters. Holding God up as different and separate and better still matters. And giving him our best, in a sense, does still matter. One of the other cases that people make for being casual is it makes visitors very uncomfortable. In fact, there was a waitress. I would go to a restaurant and do work on my sermons, and grab a cup of coffee, and I would invite the waitresses to church, and there was one who kept saying, I'm going to come, but I don't have any church clothes. I don't really have any nice dress. I just dress like, this, jeans and t-shirt every day, and is that going to be a problem? I said, no, it's really not a problem, and it's not for a visitor. On the other hand, I am a big advocate, more and more all the time, for they are welcome to come in whatever they come in. However, trying to make them more comfortable is not the goal. In fact, there is a level of discomfort I think is very positive when they realize I'm coming into something different. This is not the same as what's going on at the restaurant next door and the baseball game to the next door, or to the other side. I'm going somewhere different. I'm stepping out of the world and into a gathering of God's people. They're going to speak in different ways. The songs they sing are going to say things that I'm not maybe familiar with. The things are going to look and feel a little different here because it is. Because we are different. Because we're a separate people. That we might be Americans who live and breathe in this very casual culture, but we're also Christians who are stepping out of that culture to commune with God, to come before the table of Christ and enjoy his body and blood, to hear the word, to fellowship, that it is a different place. And I think this impetus towards let's casual everything down, let's take this extra measure of preparation out of it to make outsiders comfortable. I think there is a very healthy, godly discomfort that people should feel when they come in, because it gives them something of if we're like everything else, if what we do is no different, and it's, well, hey, you can be just as comfortable here as everywhere else, that exclusivity that really is our appeal, that higher mountain that you're climbing up, spiritually, metaphorically in this sense, is something that they can truly observe. When you try to flatten that mountain of coming before God, I don't think it has healthy effects. I think it helps create the consumer Christianity of just come as you are and stay as you are. Now, come as you are, you're welcome for however, but if you're going to be a part of this, you need to realize this is a different place. And I think the visual, we can be very Gnostic and say the outside, the flesh, the clothing, the visual does not matter, but I think it really does. I think that is a Gnostic tendency to say it doesn't. It gets into the Old Testament was physical, New Testament was spiritual, false dichotomy that the Bible doesn't really hold. And I think it's important that we emphasize those things. And so, based on Exodus and the idea of drawing near to God, based on projecting to the world around us that, hey, the worship assembly, the time of gathering with the saints is a step into a different world for an hour or two at a time, I think these are not things I bind. There is room for disagreement on this. However, I think the strongest case is to get back towards setting aside Sunday, making it a little bit different, dressing up, and approaching it in this way. And so, great question. As always, leave your comments if you agree, disagree. If you have something to add, please do. And if you have other questions to add to the Scriptural Focus hopper, please do. And we'll keep taking them into consideration, and we'll be back to talk more next week.